Have you ever wondered how to get the maximum yield of bush beans from your garden? In this video, I'm gonna tell you all of our secrets for growing the biggest, most productive crop of bush beans that you have ever seen, therefore giving you the biggest harvest ever. Welcome to the farmhouse. I'm Deanne from Hummingbird Acres, and today I am excited to share with you guys one of my favorite gardening secrets. Growing bush beans does not have to be complicated or expensive, but with a few extra tips and some secrets along the way, you can make sure that you get the biggest harvest ever of bush beans from your garden. Let's go ahead and jump into my step-by-step process for growing bush beans and getting the biggest harvest ever that you can eat fresh and preserve for those winter months ahead. Behind me is our bush bean bed for this gardening season. This is the first time we planted bush beans in this section of our garden. We did this for a couple of reasons. Last year, this part of the garden had tomatoes in it, and we noticed that the tomatoes didn't do very well, and we attributed that to just poor soil. So beans of any kind are great nitrogen fixers in a garden, which is why we chose one of the reasons why we chose this spot for our bush beans. When you are looking for a location for your bush beans, you want to make sure that the area gets at least 6, if not more, hours of direct sunlight. You want to make sure that the soil is well drained and that it is a good composted topsoil. I'll leave below the variety of bush beans that we grow in the comments below and in the description of this video. I don't remember it right off the top of my head, but we did not start these seeds beforehand. What we did is we soaked them overnight in water to give them a head start, and then we direct sowed them into the garden about a week or two after our last frost date. After they were direct sown into the garden, we made sure that they got plenty of water, and we also made sure that they were touching soil so that they had soil contact and they had everything that they need to grow. The key with growing bush beans or any beans is when you plant them, you want to make sure the seeds are wet and that they stay moist so that they can germinate, which is why we also run soaker hoses in all of our garden beds. If you want to learn how to garden and raise garden beds, you need our ebook, Gardening from Scratch, the ultimate guide for gardening and raised garden beds. I will leave that below for you. It goes through absolutely everything you need to know on getting started with your raised garden bed, filling your boxes with soil, setting up your watering system, and some great tips and tricks to help you have a successful garden. One of those tips and tricks is to make sure that the garden is stays watered and the soil stays moist, which is key for any type of bean, including bush beans. It is the beginning of July, and we have picked our first round of bush beans off of these plants. You want to harvest your bush beans when they're somewhere between 4 and 6 inches long and the pods are firm. You want to make sure that you harvest often. This will encourage more growth and more beans for you. Our first harvest off of this garden bed was about a bushel, which is great for us. Maybe not quite a year's worth of green beans, but definitely a great start. To harvest a green bean, you want to hold the green bean with one hand and then use your other hand to gently pull the bean off of the stem. You want to make sure that you are not harming any of the plants around, and you want to be gentle. We also use gardening shears, I'll leave a link below for them, to help us harvest our green beans and to make the process go a little bit quicker. Some tips on when to harvest green beans. The ideal time to harvest green beans is in the morning before the sunlight has time to hit the plants. This is going to be the time when your beans have the most water and they are the sweetest and they are the most tender. If you cannot harvest first thing in the morning, the next best time is late in the evening when the sun has gone down and there's no sunlight hitting your direct plants. This is going to make it so that your beans last longer and they'll have that nice snap when you go to eat them. When you are harvesting, make sure that you throw away any beans that look funny. Maybe they're soft, maybe they're discolored, or maybe they're just really tough. They're just not going to make good eatings for anything. If you do harvest on a really hot day, say your morning is really hot when you harvest, or when you harvest in the afternoon, it's really hot, I suggest soaking your beans, or really you can do this for any produce you harvest, and it's called soaking off the heat. If you soak them in water, you're rehydrating them and giving them a longer shelf life for you. This is one of the tips I share in our Gardening from Scratch ebook. Like I said, you can get a link to that below. But soaking off the heat from your garden really helps make the harvest last a little bit longer. Once you have soaked off the heat and rinsed them off, you want to store them in a cool, dry place so that they are ready for you when you are ready to eat. If you have harvested more beans than you know what to do with, and more beans than you can have for one meal or what you are looking for, there are several ways that you can preserve your bush beans to make them last longer. If you think you are going to be using your bush beans within a week, I suggest storing them in a refrigerator. They will last and be great for you to use within a week. If you are not going to be able to use them within a week, you have two options. You can freeze them. So the way we do this is we will lay parchment paper down on cookie sheets, lay all of the beans down. We do try to pre-snap the ends off before we lay them down before we freeze them, but we don't always. But you can pre-snap them, lay them on parchment paper on a cookie sheet, and then we put them in the freezer for 24 hours. Once they are nice and frozen, then we will put them in bags and then put them back in the freezer. We like to lay them on cookie sheets so we can lay everything flat and nothing is really sticking to each other when it goes into the freezer. Another great thing about freezing your bush beans is you can put them in what is the word I'm looking for? You can measure them out into portions that are perfect for meals. So say you want in each bag to put 1 cup of beans, you can measure that out ahead of time and then just make sure you label your bag to tell you the date and how much is in the bag. We did that last year. We had great success with that, and we've used them all up. So they were definitely good frozen as well. This year we took a different approach. We decided that we were going to pressure can our green beans. My dad and our kids love canned beans, so we figured that is the way that we would preserve them this year. Bush beans, any bean, has to be pressure canned just because the acidity level is not high enough. So I suggest looking at your pressure canner, reading the directions on what they say the pressure should be and how long you should process them for whatever canner you have. We really did love pressure canning our beans. We did do them in quart jars. We got 17 quart jars of green beans. We are a family of 7, 8 sometimes, depending on what grandparent is here. So we prefer to can in quarts because we feed more people and you open less cans or less jars. So 17 quarts of green beans. We are super excited to try these. We have 2 that didn't seal, which is no big deal because we'll use those within the next couple of weeks. So your options for preserving your beans are refrigerator if you are going to use them within the next week. If you want to save them for a longer period of time, you can either freeze them or you can pressure can them. I do have resources for pressure canning and freezing your harvest on our website. I will leave that link below for you too if you're looking for more directions. If you are ready to jump into all things gardening and raised garden beds, check out our Gardening from Scratch ebook. It is linked below for you. It is over 70 pages of everything you need to know to start your raised bed garden now. It is not too late. Summer gardening season might be coming to the middle, and some could say the close, but fall gardening season is just starting, and it is the perfect time to jump right into your garden. Bush beans are a great crop to grow for beginners. Very forgiving, and you'll get an amazing harvest out of it. So I highly suggest you add some bush beans to your garden. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful and helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, And please give this video a like so that it can reach more people and help more gardeners around the world. Thanks so much for hanging out with me at the farmhouse today, and I will talk to you guys soon.